Yo guys, what is up? Max on Borderlands 4 video, and today we're going over my updated guide to Nuclear Winter Harlowe. Now, this is the build guide that I leveled from level 1 with. I posted a leveling guide, we did an endgame guide, and this is kind of the update. Now, the reason we're updating the build is because I posted that build, and I was primarily using two purple Vladoff SMGs that are pretty difficult to find or get, and a lot of people were asking me for legendary recommendations. A lot of people were telling me, oh, you gotta try this legendary on Nuclear Winter, you gotta try this legendary on Nuclear Winter. So in this video, we're going to be kind of doing like a top 5 must-have weapons for Harlowe, particularly with this build, as well as go over some changes that I made to the build to solve some of the issues it was having. We were doing some weird things to try to get some survivability. We have fixed our survivability while also speccing for a ton more damage. So I hope you guys enjoy the breakdown. Let's get right into it. So now let's go over kind of like the top 5 or like must-have legendary weapons for this build. Now, quick little recap. This is a neutron capture build. We're scaling up our elemental damage, our skill damage, our action skill damage to hit really, really hard with Chroma Accelerator, and then convert all of that into our guns. And then when we shoot our guns, we're dealing like the damage of our entire explosion from Chroma Accelerator. And this is flat damage added on top of your bullets, meaning that you deal the same amount of damage if you're shooting a level 1 pistol versus if you're shooting a level 50 sniper rifle. So what really matters with our neutron capture build is a few things. One, the fire rate. Things that fire quickly are going to be much better. And two, how many times are we hitting an enemy per trigger pull? Things that hit enemies multiple times per trigger pull will be substantially better than things that only hit once. So with that in mind, some of the legendaries that I've been enjoying the most on this build, and a lot of these are from recommendations from y'all, is for honorable mentions, we've got the Burt's Bees SMG. The Plasma Coil, I kind of covered the Plasma Coil in the last video. It fires really fast, but isn't like the specific best. It's got a little bit like slower speed on its bullets. And also the Wombo Combo. Wombo Combo hits really hard, just a good weapon, and it pairs well with this build. But in terms of like specific weapons, the Complex Root, if you can get a Complex Root with a Jacob's part, you can make enemies take a ton of hits from a single shot, and this can lead to some of the fastest boss kills on this specific build. There's also the Looty Mad Lad. This is the highest fire rate SMG in the game, and it can also roll with a shotgun attachment to roll full, or just to like shoot really, really fast with a ton of pellets. It is tough to maintain ammo on. However, if you're looking for like quick burst damage, it's probably one of the strongest options for this specific build. Our number 3 spot are the like Lucians and the Agons, particularly with Jacob's rolls. Now, in testing, Jacob's ricochets get full damage from neutron capture. So we kind of mentioned that if you are hitting multiple enemies per trigger pull, that is going to lead to better damage output. And Jacob's ricochets get neutron capture on the ricochet, meaning that you have much faster clear speed if you're using either a Lucian's or an Agon's for mobbing. So I've been messing around with that a lot. Feels really, really great. And then our top 2, these I would consider just like must-have weapons for this setup, are the Convergence, and our number 1 spot is the Katagawa's Revenge. The Convergence is fantastic because it hits a ton of times. It's great for mobbing. It's great for bossing. And the amount of hits that it procs is really, really substantial with neutron capture. And then Katagawa's Revenge is probably the strongest weapon that I've used on this build. When you crit with Katagawa's Revenge, you spawn these like floating Tesla balls. However, if you can get the Katagawa's Revenge with a Jacob's part, then all of your crits will, instead of spawning 3 Tesla orbs to hit enemies, then they spawn 6. And if you're using the enhancement for an additional ricochet or an additional ricochet chance when you're using Katagawa's Revenge, now every time that you shoot, you hit 9 times. You spawn 9 Tesla orbs, and all of these Tesla orbs are spamming out the full damage of neutron capture, which means that, like, you know, you shoot once, you're basically hitting 9 times per second, if not way more than that. And you can have this do some other things that we'll talk about, so that it just like absolutely melts bosses, and you can use it for mobbing. It's pretty crazy. So that's kind of like some must-have weapons and things to really go out and farm for. Note that basically all of these weapons are better if you can get a Jacob's roll on them, because that means that they will ricochet, and some of these weapons, like the Katagawa's Revenge and the Complex Root, deal substantially more single target damage if you can roll a Jacob's part on them. Next, we get to talk about how we fixed our survivability and our healing, and that has to do with the Kill Spring Rep Kit. Now, we started using this on Melee Rafa, and it was a lifesaver, like no pun intended. This gives you so much healing. This rep kit, the Kill Spring, is farmed from Axe Maul, and it reads Blood Siphon on kill converts 100% of any excess damage into healing orbs that seek out nearby allies. Now, we are considered allies. This seeks us out, and Neutron Capture hits for like hundreds of thousands of damage, so we're overkilling enemies a lot. And this will give you health restore, but also if you have full health, it gives you shield, and if you have full shield, it gives you overshield. The amount of survivability that we get out of this thing is crazy. It doesn't technically work on bosses because we're not like overkilling them, as in like you would need to go kill ads for healing in a boss fight. But most boss fights are not lasting more than like 3 to 5 seconds. So for mobbing, this is a massive quality of life, and it's going to allow us to change our skill tree around a bit so that we can spec into less survivability and less healing and a whole lot more damage. All right, now let's go over our skill tree. All right, now let's go over our updated skill tree. Now, I've gone back and forth a ton of times on how this skill tree should look, and I think we've arrived at the best result, but I kind of want to explain some of my decision-making here. So red tree's, for the most part, staying the same. One change that we're doing is we're picking Bleeding Edge, which gives us 25% reload speed over Fuzzy Math. We're going to have 100% status effect chance from our specializations, so this isn't as necessary. And Neutron Capture is only an 8-second damage window. It's really not a lot of time, and if you have to reload during Neutron Capture, a reload can eat a lot of that. And I was definitely getting a little bit frustrated having to constantly spam my Chrome Accelerator / Neutron Capture all the time. So Bleeding Edge gives us a little bit more uptime in our window, especially if you have like a long reload gun. The rest of the tree is staying the same. We're not speccing to things like Field Ready Prototype because Neutron Capture only single dips into this in testing these 2 points here and 3 points into Enriched to give us radiation damage, which is going to buff Chrome Accelerator, but also buff Neutron Capture, is higher damage per point than putting points into like Field Ready Prototype. That gets us down into the middle tree where we get more radiation damage. Radiation damage is huge for us. We also, we don't care about crit chance on our guns. Our guns are not dealing the damage on this build. We get Chain Reactor for extra bonus radiation damage, Fissile Launcher for some more skill damage, and then 1 point into Dirty Bomb so that we can get some cool radiation explosions, with the big kicker being Demon Core. Demon Core is a massive damage increase for this build. Once again, we're scaling our Neutron Capture off of the damage of our action skill. Chroma Accelerator's explosion is 8.9k, and 1 dart of Demon Core is 4.4k. So 2 darts from Demon Core is about the damage of an entire detonation, and it spams these things out. It's absolutely huge, and every dart of Demon Core stacks Mechanical Brilliance, so you can single target stack 50% extra skill damage with Demon Core. So this goes really, really hard. Now, in our blue tree, we used to have to spec Quantum Immortality. We do not need this anymore. And we used to spec into Keep Ice on that for some extra lifesteal. We do not need this anymore. What we do spec is Make Extraordinary. This is giving our skills crit chance, and this stacks every time we entangle an enemy. We're spamming our action skill, so this is basically up all the time. And this impacts a Neutron Capture, so we get more crit chance. We're going to be putting points into Bright Future, so we get more fire rate. Fire rate is huge for this build. We can proc more Neutron Captures per second with more fire rate, and Ripple Effect for higher uptime on our entanglement on enemies. Now, because we're not spending points into Quantum Immortality, we can put 1 point into Negative Entropy for some extra gun handling. What we're really here for is Precision Engineering. We are critting all the time, so 30% crit damage is huge pickup for the overall damage of the build. And then with these last points, you could put them into like practical applications for more skill damage. I did have them in Carry the One for like more spreading entanglement. However, we're spamming our action skills so much that everything's already entangled pretty often. I did some testing without Carry the One, and I didn't really notice the difference in having it versus not having it. So what we're going to be putting points into is Unstable Isotope. This is a kill skill. Harlowe deals bonus cryo damage with all sources. Now, all sources includes our Neutron Capture. So now 21% of our Neutron Capture damage that hits for thousands and thousands is also dealing bonus cryo damage. The reason this is so good and the reason I'm opting for this over some other things is because it helps the whole, like, we're a radiation only build. It can be a little, your damage does go down a bit when you're fighting armored targets. This will cover that a whole lot, and so the build is better at basically everything. Now, obviously, this isn't going to proc every time on bosses, but when you're detonating the huge neutron capture on some bosses, such as like Callus, for example, you will get that bonus cryo damage, and then you have even more boss damage, more so than like another like additive damage increase would do for us. So that is the skill tree. For the rest of the gear, as stated, we're using like Lucian Flanks and Aegon's Dreams for mobbing. They are really, really helpful at just hitting a lot of enemies very quickly. The Katagawa's Revenge is, in my opinion, one of the strongest weapons on this particular build with a Jacob's Roll for mobbing and bossing. It just melts everything. And then I've also got a Convergence, which is also really nice for mobbing and bossing. It won't put out the same kind of bossing damage as a Katagawa's Revenge, but it is very, very nice. I do want to just quickly call out and interrupt that the Buris on this build, particularly elemental ones with taser attachments, are still absolutely disgusting and are some of the most consistent boss and mobbing DPS. However, I just constantly hear about how hard it is to find these, so that's why they're not like super featured in this particular video. However, they're still like just some of the best sources of damage for this particular build. For our rep kit, we're using the Kill Spring. This is our survivability, as mentioned earlier. We're also using the Vivisecting Penetrator Knife. Just makes all of our damage higher. There's really no reason not to use this. If you really don't want to use the crit knife, there is a ordnance that gives you 40% increased radiation damage against targets that are affected by it. You could use that as well. I'm still just using the crit knife. For our class mod, the Skeptic, this solves all of our cooldowns. Basically, whenever we shoot an enemy with an active status effect, we restore 5% of our action skill cooldown. This leads to 100% uptime of neutron capture, which is a massive damage increase, way more so than like any other like class mod with more points into it. Or into like damage skills could do for us. However, this also specs points into fire rate, which is what you're looking for. You want as many fire rate points in your Skeptic as possible. For bossing, you can use the driver class mod. This is around a 67 to 70% amp for Chrome Accelerator, which makes our neutron capture deal more damage. However, we don't have any cooldown spec on this build, so if you atomic driver and then don't kill the boss, you're going to have to wait for your cooldown. So I don't really use it all that often. There are clips in this video of me using the driver to maximize our damage. However, it's definitely not needed for most bosses in the game. For our shield, we're going to be using the Super Soldier. This gives us one of our most important stats, fire rate, but it also regens ammo for us. Fire rate is super important on this build, and we actually have the uptime on this up way more often because of the Kill Spring. And lastly, for our enhancement, I'm still using the Proficient Quintain. There's no dedicated drop for this. It's just like you have to get lucky, unfortunately. But with the Bounce Pass, guns with Jacob license parts increase the number of possible ricochets by 1. This is fantastic because it leads to faster clear speed, but it also will massively increase the boss damage of things like the Katagawa's Revenge and the Complex Root. For your firmware, I don't have it fully done right now, but you're going to want 2 pieces into Bullets to Spare and 3 into High Caliber. High Caliber gives us projectile speed, gun damage, which both we don't really care about, but what it does give us is bullets pierce enemies. Now, if you are not rocking a Katagawa's Revenge, you do not need High Caliber. However, this with the High Caliber is basically doubling the damage of the Katagawa's Revenge. Just to give you a quick example. So, if I shoot this sniper rifle, let's shoot this guy. This is with High Caliber on. Oh, we gotta do it in shock. So with shock, you can see I'm spawning that many orbs. That should be 6 orbs. If we take off a High Caliber roll, let's just take off our rep kit. Now if we shoot this, I only get 3. So basically, what High Caliber is doing, or the Pierce is allowing us to do, is anytime we shoot an enemy, we're going to double the amount of projectiles that spawn on them, because it is spawning these orbs not only on hit, but also on collision. So, for example, if I'm shooting at this boss, his back is to the wall here, I'm going to get the projectiles from shooting him, and then also the projectiles that spawn on the wall, and all of those will go hit him. And then if I crit with the Proficient Quintain to get an additional ricochet, now it looks like this. And that, with neutron capture, is a lot of hits per second. So, here's with neutron capture. We can just shoot these. And you'll see the ricochets will spawn all of them. And because we are hitting an enemy with a box behind him, or if we're like jumping and shooting down on him, we just get so many spawns of this, which lead to some of the most ridiculous bossing and mobbing damage for this particular build. Guys, that is going to do it for the video and the build update. I will have a max roll planner linked down in the description below. Max roll has now added gear and set gear and legendaries into our planners. We've been working really hard on getting those up to date for y'all, so they should be a whole lot more feature complete. Hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Take care. Peace.